Today we finish our look at the epistle 1 Peter. As we've seen, it is a letter written to a group of churches facing persecution in one form or another in the first century. The writer takes an interesting and even counterintuitive tack in his advice to the churches. Instead of counseling them either to withdraw from society into their own insular enclaves or to resist with some level of force, he urges them to remain active participants in their secular communities and accept whatever persecution comes their way. For he sees in the redemptive suffering of Jesus Christ the pattern of Christian living. That is, Christians are to understand that their suffering has some measure of redemptive effect on their oppressors. A bold and shocking assertion. As we finish our read today, he doubles down on his call to accept suffering as part of their Christian journey, for in his understanding, the end of all things is near at hand. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Saturday, December 2nd, 2023. The reading for today in 1 Peter from the daily lectionary comes with an announcement and an exhortation. He says, "The end of all things is near. Therefore be serious and discipline yourselves for the sake of your prayers. Above all, maintain constant love for one another, for love covers a multitude of sins." The announcement that the end of all things is near seems to have been the unspoken basis for 1 Peter's advice all along. If the end is near, then suffering and persecution are bound to be short-lived. I wonder, but have no way of knowing, what 1 Peter's advice would have been if he didn't expect the imminent end of all things. Would he have continued to counsel them to stand firm in the acceptance of persecution, or would his strategy have changed? That's one of those questions that are intriguing, but impossible to answer. What matters is that he believed it and shaped his advice to his churches accordingly. This announcement follows with the exhortation to love one another. It is significant that he ties these two things together so closely. It is clear that love within the Christian community is very near the heart of Christian life. Partly, I suspect, this is because without love for one another, the rest of the Christian witness begins to fall apart. But I also suspect that his advice is related to the expectation of continued persecution. Two things can happen when a community comes under stress like that. Either the community comes apart at the seams as people begin to vent their frustrations and fears at one another. This would have spelled the end of the Christian communities. The other is that the community can circle the wagon, so to speak, and place caring for one another at the very heart of their common life. As we've seen, this is not a circling of the wagons to separate from the world. It is a way of living in mutually supportive relationships. Now the writer circles back to the theme of suffering and the coming judgment of God. He says, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that is taking place among you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice insofar as you are sharing Christ's sufferings, so that you may also be glad and shout for joy when his glory is revealed. If you are reviled for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of glory, which is the Spirit of God, is resting on you. But let none of you suffer as a murderer, a thief, a criminal, or even as a mischief maker. Yet if any of you suffers as a Christian, do not consider it a disgrace, but glorify God because you bear this name. For the time has come for judgment to begin with the household of God. If the end of all things is near, that means the time for universal judgment is also near. Part of the Christian message is that Christ will come again to judge all people. I've talked before about how this is not bad news for believers, for even though we continue to sin, yet Christ, who is our judge, is also our Redeemer. But for 1 Peter, the nearness of that judgment becomes a source of encouragement to maintain the faith. It is a kind of don't engage in backsliding message. And with that, our read through 1 Peter comes to an end. But if you have your Bible handy, you'll notice that there is one more chapter to go in this letter. It's too bad, but the daily lectionary ends its walk through 1 Peter without taking up chapter 5. It is a more focused message to church leaders, but we'll have to take it up another day. When we return next week, we'll take up some Advent themes. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.